Have you ever felt your chest tightening, your vision narrowing, and before you could stop yourself, words you didn't mean came bursting out? That moment when anger takes over and leaves you both powerful and powerless at the same time. We've all been there. Maybe it was a partner, a coworker, or even a stranger cutting you off in traffic. You tried to stay calm, but something deep inside erupted, almost as if another person had taken control. Now imagine this. What if that eruption wasn't truly about the other person at all? What if it was a signal, an ancient message from the depths of your own psyche, trying to reveal something you've been avoiding for years? Carl Jung once said that everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. Think about that. The next time someone makes you angry, maybe the real confrontation isn't with them, but with the part of yourself you refuse to see. We live in a culture that teaches us to either suppress our anger or unleash it. Stay calm, they say. Or, don't hold it in, express yourself. But neither extreme brings peace. Because the real problem isn't the anger itself, it's what lies beneath it. Anger is often the mask worn by pain, fear, or unmet needs. When you explode, it's not just emotion escaping, it's truth demanding attention. What if you could learn to hear that truth without being consumed by it? What if, instead of reacting, you could listen to your anger as if it were a wise but wounded part of you? In this video, we're going to explore Jung's understanding of shadow and projection, why we see our own hidden chaos reflected in others, and how to reclaim the power that anger steals from us. But before we go deeper, take a moment to think. When was the last time you lost your temper, and what was really behind it? If you've ever wanted to stop being controlled by your anger and instead understand it, stay with me. This conversation might change the way you see every argument you've ever had. And if this resonates, hit the like button and share in the comments. When was the last time anger surprised you? Imagine for a moment that the next time someone provokes you, someone pushes that precise button that usually ignites you, you don't explode. You don't suppress it either. You simply notice. You feel the heat rising, but instead of becoming the flame, you become the observer. You can almost see your anger as a color, as a wave moving through you. And in that quiet awareness, something new appears. Clarity. Now picture this version of yourself walking through life without being hijacked by emotional storms. Someone criticizes you, but instead of reacting, you sense the pain behind their words. A loved one disappoints you, but instead of shouting, you breathe. And for the first time, you understand what your anger was trying to tell you. Something in you needs care. What would change in your life if you could experience anger without being ruled by it? How many relationships would heal? How much peace could you reclaim? Carl Jung believed that emotions like anger are gateways to self-knowledge. They are not enemies to be defeated, but signals to be interpreted. He taught that the emotions we resist the most often contain the energy we need for transformation. So imagine if each time you felt anger, instead of labeling it as wrong, you treated it as a guide leading you back to something forgotten within you. Picture yourself living that way, still human, still imperfect, but no longer reactive. You would speak differently, you would listen differently, and you would begin to carry a certain quiet strength that people can feel even before you open your mouth. The world would not stop trying to provoke you, but your center would remain unshaken. You'd start to realize that true control doesn't come from forcing calmness. It comes from understanding the storm itself. Take a moment and imagine your next conflict. Could you pause instead of explode? Could you listen to what your anger is really asking for? Because here's the truth. Peace is not the absence of anger, it's the presence of awareness. And that awareness, once awakened, changes everything. Most people believe that anger is something that happens to them, an external force triggered by someone else's words or actions. They made me angry, we say, as if our emotions were puppets controlled by invisible strings in someone else's hands. But Jung would have called that a dangerous illusion, because no one can make you angry. They can only touch what is already there. That's the uncomfortable truth. Anger doesn't enter from outside. It rises from within. It's our own shadow being illuminated by the presence of another person. When someone triggers you, they are not creating your rage. They are revealing it. They've simply pressed on a wound that was already aching beneath your awareness. Think about it. Have you ever noticed that some people's actions don't bother you at all, while others ignite you instantly? That's not about them. It's about you. It's your psyche saying, "Here is something unresolved. Look at it." Jung understood this as the mechanism of projection. We project what we cannot accept within ourselves onto others. The arrogance we see in someone else might be the arrogance we repress in ourselves. The selfishness we condemn might mirror our own unmet desires. The anger then becomes a mirror, showing us what we've tried to exile from consciousness. And here's the real disruption. Your anger is not your enemy, it's your teacher. It's not there to destroy your peace but to restore it by demanding honesty. Each outburst you've ever had was a message in disguise. There is something within you that wants to be seen. So when you feel rage building, what if instead of saying, "They make me so angry," you whispered, "This is mine. What is this showing me?" That simple shift, from blame to curiosity, changes everything. It's radical, because it gives you your power back. You stop being a victim of other people's behavior and start becoming a student of your own inner world. The next time you feel that fire rising, remember this. It's not a war against someone else. It's a revelation about yourself. And that revelation might be the doorway to the calm you've been searching for all along. Carl Jung spent much of his life studying the hidden architecture of the human mind, the layers beneath our conscious personality. He called these hidden layers the shadow, the part of ourselves that holds everything we refuse to see: envy, rage, weakness, and desire. Jung didn't view anger as something to suppress or to act out. He saw it as a messenger from this shadow, a signal that something essential had been exiled from awareness. In one of his writings, Jung observed that when an inner situation is not made conscious, it appears outside as fate. In other words, the more we ignore what's boiling inside, the more life will mirror it back to us through conflict. The person who constantly encounters anger in others is often meeting their own unacknowledged hostility, reflected right back at them. It's as if life conspires to expose what we hide. Modern psychology has confirmed much of what Jung intuited a century ago. Neuroscientists now know that the amygdala, the brain's emotional alarm system, activates within milliseconds of perceived threat. But the key insight is this: most of what triggers that alarm isn't real danger. It's symbolic. It's connected to old emotional imprints, memories, and identities that we're still protecting. Your body might be reacting to an argument with your partner, but your nervous system could be replaying a wound from childhood. Philosophers like Seneca and Marcus Aurelius also spoke about anger in remarkably similar terms. Seneca called anger a temporary madness, but not because it was evil, because it blinded us to truth. Marcus urged that the best revenge was not to resemble those who wronged us. The Stoics, like Jung, believed that true freedom was not found in repressing emotion, but in understanding it deeply enough that it no longer ruled us. So when Jung invites us to meet our shadow, he's not asking us to become emotionless saints. He's asking for maturity, the courage to face the uncomfortable parts of ourselves with honesty. When you feel anger next time, you are standing at a crossroad between two ancient paths: the reactive one that repeats your past, or the conscious one that reveals your truth. Which one you choose will determine whether your anger controls your life or transforms it. Here's what most people never realize about anger. It rarely begins in the moment it erupts. By the time you explode, the real cause is already buried beneath layers of silence, disappointment, and unmet expectations. The fight you have today is often the echo of something you didn't express months or even years ago. This is why anger feels so disproportionate. Someone says one careless thing, and suddenly all the pain you've stored floods to the surface. You think you're reacting to the present, but your body is reacting to the past. Jung called this complex activation, when old emotional patterns seize control of consciousness. That's why in moments of rage, you don't feel like yourself. You're not responding as the adult you are today. You're defending the child you once were. Most people never see this hidden chain reaction. They think anger is spontaneous, but it's actually the last visible stage of a much older story. It begins quietly, with resentment, self-denial, or the fear of being unheard. Then it builds tension in the background until it finds a spark. The explosion isn't random. It's the psyche's desperate attempt to release what has been suppressed for too long. If you look closely, anger always hides a deeper emotion beneath it. Sometimes it's grief, the pain of not being seen. Sometimes it's fear, the terror of losing control or love. Sometimes it's shame, the unbearable sense of not being enough. But we rarely allow ourselves to feel those softer emotions because they make us vulnerable. So instead, the psyche wraps them in fire, turning pain into aggression, because it's easier to be angry than to be hurt. This invisible dynamic runs silently through relationships, workplaces, and even families. It creates repeating patterns where the same argument happens again and again, only with different faces. To break this cycle, you must learn to trace anger back to its roots. Not to justify it, but to understand it. Ask yourself, what emotion am I protecting right now? What is my anger trying to shield me from feeling? That simple act of inquiry begins to untangle years of unconscious reactivity. Because when you see the truth behind your anger, it loses its power to control you. And in that awareness, real emotional freedom begins. Anger is not a weakness, it's information. You do not need to destroy it, you need to decode it. Every time you explode, it's not your rage that wins, it's your avoidance. The goal isn't to manage anger, it's to understand what it's protecting. You can't heal what you refuse to feel. The opposite of anger isn't calmness, it's clarity. Anger doesn't come to punish you, it comes to reveal you. Every trigger is a teacher disguised as an enemy. The moment you stop blaming others for your anger, you begin to grow. And here's one of the hardest truths. If you keep meeting the same kind of people who make you angry, life is probably trying to show you a part of yourself you've been avoiding. Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Each burst of anger is your unconscious trying to become conscious. Every argument is a message from within saying, "See me. Don't reject me." You can spend your life fighting people who trigger you, or you can turn inward and finally meet the version of yourself that's been waiting to be understood. True emotional strength isn't about never feeling anger. It's about being intimate with it without letting it consume you. When you understand your anger, you gain something more valuable than control. You gain wisdom. Because wisdom is not found in suppressing emotion. It's found in staying present with what emotion reveals. So remember these words the next time you feel the flame rising inside you. Pause. Breathe. Observe. Don't run from the fire. Listen to it. It's not trying to burn your life down. It's trying to light the way back to yourself. The person who learns to sit calmly in the presence of their own anger doesn't lose power. They become untouchable. Because once you stop being afraid of your own fire, no one else can use it against you. Here's the paradox that most people never see. The more you fight your anger, the stronger it becomes. The more you suppress it, the deeper it hides. And the more explosive it becomes when it finally resurfaces. The same emotion we fear is the one we empower through resistance. Jung understood this well. What we resist persists. Think about it. You tell yourself, "I shouldn't be angry," and you push the emotion away. But that judgment adds shame to the fire, and now you're angry about being angry. Or you go to the opposite extreme. You unleash everything, thinking that expression equals freedom. But uncontrolled release doesn't heal. It only reinforces the habit of reactivity. Both suppression and indulgence keep you trapped in the same loop. The surprising truth is that peace and anger are not opposites. They are partners in awareness. Peace is what arises when anger is fully understood. You cannot access one without embracing the other. Imagine your anger as a wild animal that's been locked away for years. When you first open the cage, it won't calmly walk out. It will roar. But if you stand your ground, if you meet it without fear, eventually it stops attacking. It begins to trust your presence. That's how inner reconciliation happens, not through control, but through compassion. And this is the hidden duality. Anger is both the guardian and the gatekeeper of your deepest truth. It protects your boundaries, your dignity, your authenticity, but it also blocks intimacy and connection if you let it rule. It can destroy or transform, depending on whether you meet it with resistance or curiosity. Jung often said that wholeness is not achieved by cutting off parts of ourselves, but by integrating them. That means your anger doesn't need to disappear. It needs to belong. It needs to be seen as part of your humanity, not a flaw in it. The paradox is beautiful. The moment you stop trying to get rid of your anger is the moment it begins to lose control over you. Because the light of consciousness doesn't destroy the shadow. It simply makes it visible. And once you can see it clearly, it no longer rules from the dark. Imagine living in a way where anger no longer hijacks your peace, where conflict no longer drains you, but teaches you. Imagine responding to tension with calm curiosity, not because you've become detached, but because you've become deeply connected to yourself. That's not suppression. That's mastery. The real reward of understanding anger isn't just emotional control, it's inner freedom. You no longer live in fear of your own reactions. You stop replaying conversations in your mind, regretting the words you said when you were burning inside. You begin to speak from clarity instead of chaos. That shift changes everything. Your relationships, your confidence, even the way you experience silence. Carl Jung said that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Anger, paradoxically, is one of the most direct paths to that authenticity. Each time you face it consciously, you peel back another layer of illusion. You stop pretending to be endlessly calm, endlessly accommodating, endlessly nice. Instead, you become real, rooted, grounded, whole. The reward is not perfection, it's presence. It's the ability to stay centered while others lose themselves. You no longer need to prove your strength through shouting, nor your goodness through silence. You understand that true strength is gentleness born from awareness. This is what emotional maturity feels like. Not cold detachment, but a warmth that doesn't burn. The ability to hold your fire without letting it consume the room. To feel anger and still choose compassion. To feel hurt and still speak truth without cruelty. When you reach this place, anger becomes energy rather than destruction. You can channel it into boundaries, creativity, or action. You become someone others trust, not because you never get angry, but because your anger has become wise. So the promise isn't that you'll never feel rage again, it's that rage will never own you again. And that kind of peace can't be given by anyone else. It's earned moment by moment through awareness, honesty, and courage. Because the moment you make peace with your anger, you stop fighting the world and start living from your center. To truly understand why anger holds such transformative potential, we need to see it through Jung's broader psychological map, the framework he called individuation. In Jungian psychology, individuation is the lifelong process of integrating the conscious and unconscious parts of the self. It's how a person becomes whole. Every strong emotion, every conflict, every uncomfortable mirror that life presents is part of this inner dialogue between who you think you are and who you truly are. Anger, in this sense, is not random. It's a messenger from the unconscious, signaling that something within you is asking to be integrated. Each flare of rage points toward a part of the psyche that's been exiled, an unaccepted fear, a forgotten wound, a boundary that was never honored. When you feel anger, you are touching the edge of your own wholeness. This is why Jung didn't treat anger as pathology, but as potential. He saw that the psyche seeks balance. What's repressed in one direction will surface in another. So, if you repress assertiveness, life will confront you with people who dominate you until you reclaim your own power. If you bury pain, it will rise as irritation. The psyche is always trying to make you conscious. From a symbolic view, anger is the fire of transformation. In alchemy, one of Jung's favorite metaphors, fire was both the destroyer and the purifier. It burns away what no longer serves, but also reveals gold hidden within the base metal. Likewise, conscious anger burns illusion and exposes truth. It teaches discernment, where you end and another begins. Modern psychology supports this ancient view. Emotional regulation isn't about extinguishing feelings, but integrating them through awareness. Mindfulness, cognitive reflection, and somatic awareness are all ways of bringing consciousness into the moment of reaction, essentially practicing individuation in real time. So the framework is simple yet profound. Anger is a signal. Awareness is the response. Integration is the goal. And through this process, every emotional trigger becomes an invitation to know yourself more deeply. When you accept anger as part of your wholeness, it stops being an obstacle to peace and becomes the very force that leads you to it. Now that you understand what anger really is, its message, its shadow, its power, take a moment to reflect. How has anger shaped your life so far? How many moments, relationships, or words spoken in fire would you reclaim if you could? But more importantly, how many times has anger revealed something about you that you didn't want to see? That's the place where transformation begins. Jung taught that wholeness requires confrontation with the shadow. It means looking directly into what you once rejected and saying, "You belong too." So here's the invitation. The next time you feel that familiar heat rising, pause. Don't suppress it, and don't unleash it. Just breathe and observe. Ask yourself, what part of me is speaking right now? You might discover it's not the angry adult at all, but the unheard child, the ignored boundary, the buried truth. If you can listen in that moment, really listen, you'll start to notice something miraculous. The anger softens. It turns into clarity. It becomes guidance. That's when you realize you were never at war with the world, only with your own disowned parts. And when that war ends, peace isn't something you practice. It's something you are. Let this be your experiment for the week. When anger comes, don't call it a problem. Call it a signal. Write down what it's pointing to. Speak to it. Honor it. That is how you begin to turn pain into wisdom. And if this message resonated with you, if it made you see anger in a new light, leave a comment below sharing one insight you're taking from this video. I'd love to hear what your anger has been trying to teach you. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe, because this journey, the inner path, isn't about perfection. It's about self-honesty, courage, and integration. Remember, no one can take your peace away if you've learned to make peace with yourself. So the next time someone tests your patience, smile quietly. You're not suppressing your fire, you're mastering it. And that, as Jung would say, is the beginning of true individuation. The moment when your anger no longer destroys your peace but protects your soul.